Sign it, Aubrey. Claire is back. This game, consisting only of a contract and no feelings, it's time for it to end. A thick divorce agreement slid across the cold marble tabletop right in front of me, crashing into the hot latte I was perhaps treasuring just minutes ago. Coffee splashed out, blooming into a dirty flower on the stark white paper, just like my 5-year marriage with Preston Sterling. Glamorous on the outside, a mess on the inside. Outside the window, a Manhattan downpour was washing over the neon lights of Fifth Avenue. I raised my head to look at the man sitting in the leather sofa across from me. Preston Sterling, Wall Street's youngest shark, the sole heir to the Sterling family. He had a pair of eyes as deep blue yet cold as the North Atlantic depths. 5 years ago, those eyes were blind. Back then, I wasn't Aubrey Vance. I was that illegitimate daughter, known to the entire Vance family and even all of New York high society. My sister Claire, to dodge the responsibility of caring for a blind man, fled to Paris overnight to chase her supermodel dream, while my stepmother, so the Vance family wouldn't lose the Sterling Group's funding, stuffed me, fresh out of college, into a wedding dress and sent me into this penthouse on Central Park West. I spent 5 years imitating Claire's voice, imitating her preferences, even becoming somewhat petulant to match her personality, just to soothe him when he was blind, irritable, and desperate. I once thought I not only cured his eyes but also warmed his heart. But I was wrong. The moment Preston regained his sight, the first person he saw was Claire, who had rushed back upon hearing the news. That real, eldest Miss Vance, radiant and dazzling, threw herself into his arms with tear-filled eyes, recounting how she was forced to be separated from him abroad for these 5 years and how she missed him day and night. And I became that imposter who took advantage of his vulnerability and coveted wealth. "Preston," I spoke, my voice calmer than I predicted. The doctor said I just finished the embryo transfer surgery, and my emotions shouldn't fluctuate at a time like this. Preston let out a contemptuous sneer. He stood up, his slender fingers adjusting the cuffs of his expensive, custom-made suit, and looked down at me condescendingly. "Don't use that child as an excuse. Aubrey, you know clearly in your own heart that the embryo created via frozen sperm is just a means for you to tie down the Sterling family as a long-term meal ticket. I've also consulted a lawyer. This is an accident with no emotional foundation. The check has been filled out for $5 million, enough for you to take that unformed cell and get the hell out of New York, go to the Midwest to buy a farm, and spend the rest of your life there. $5 million. That is the price tag for my 5 years of youth, as well as the stomach I ruined taking care of him, and countless sleepless nights. My sister doesn't want to see your belly getting big. That would make her sad." Preston's tone carried a hint of impatience. "You know how fragile Claire is. If you don't sign today, I have plenty of ways to turn this $5 million into $500, or even a court summons. This is the man I've loved for 5 years. For the sake of another woman's heartbreak, he can kill his own flesh and blood without hesitation." The phone on the table suddenly started vibrating, and the words, "Lenox Hill Reproductive Center," appeared on the screen. I glanced at Preston. He was turning to walk toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking as if he found even sparing me another glance annoying. I picked up the phone. It was the voice of my attending physician, Dr. Evans, sounding unusually anxious, even trembling a bit. "Ms. Vance, please, you must stay calm and listen to me. We just discovered an extremely serious medical error while cross-checking the freezer data. This is simply catastrophic." My heart skipped a beat. "Is there something wrong with the baby?" "No, the embryo is developing perfectly. The problem is the sperm sample." Dr. Evans took a deep breath. "Due to an intern's labeling error, the sperm sample you used was not from Mr. Preston Sterling. That sample belonged to Mr. Nolan Thorne." Nolan Thorne. The name was like a thunderclap, instantly blasting apart all the chaos in my mind. In New York, if the Sterling family represents the arrogance and foundations of old money, then Nolan Thorne is synonymous with the Silicon Valley myth and new money capital. He is the founder of Thorne Tech, worth more than 10 times Preston, and is Preston's most hated arch-rival in the business world. Rumor has it that he fell into a coma 6 months ago due to a private jet accident and has been receiving treatment in Switzerland ever since. I'm not carrying my ex-husband's child, but my ex-husband's arch-rival's child? Ms. Vance, are you still listening? The Thorne family's legal team has already intervened. They are taking this very seriously. I got it. I interrupted the doctor, the corners of my mouth twitching upward uncontrollably, an unprecedented sense of absurdity, and the thrill of revenge welled up in my heart. I'll handle it. Hanging up the phone, I looked at the divorce agreement on the table and suddenly found it incredibly cute. I picked up the fountain pen and fluidly signed the name Aubrey Vance at the bottom. The scratching sound of the nib against the paper seemed exceptionally clear in the empty living room. Hearing the sound, Preston turned around, raising a brow in slight surprise. "Came to your senses. I thought you were going to put on another sob story." I stood up and slid the signed papers back, ignoring the $5 million check. I adjusted my cashmere cardigan and looked him straight in the eye, for the first time with a gaze that was cold, firm, and entirely Aubrey's own. "Preston, you're right. This child really shouldn't be the tie that binds us." I gently stroked my lower abdomen, which wasn't showing yet, smiling radiantly, because it's too precious, and you don't deserve to be its father. Preston's face instantly darkened. "What did you say?" I said, "We're even." I grabbed my clutch, turned toward the elevator lobby, and waved my hand with my back to him. "I wish you and Claire a lifetime of happiness, a bitch and a dog together forever." "Aubrey Vance, you dare curse at me!" The roaring from behind was cut off by the elevator doors. As the elevator plummeted, I looked at the woman in the mirror, pale-faced but with bright eyes, and let out a long, heavy breath. From today on, I am no longer anyone's stand-in. I am Aubrey Vance, the mother of the future heir to the Thorne family. It was still raining, but I knew my dawn had come. Walking out of the building on Central Park West, the cold wind mixed with rain hit my face, yet it couldn't extinguish the fire of ambition burning in my heart. I didn't call an Uber because a black Lincoln Stretch limo had already glided silently to the curb like a ghost. The window rolled down, revealing a white-haired but vigorous old man wearing a well-tailored English three-piece suit. It was the head butler of the Thorne family, Alfred. "Miss Vance, although it is somewhat presumptuous, Mr. Derrick hopes to see you." His tone was so respectful it was as if I were a queen, which was worlds apart from the treatment I received at the Sterling family, regarding the child in your womb and some past events. The past? I was a bit puzzled, but I knew I didn't have the leverage to refuse right now. What's more, I also needed Derrick, the sharpest of blades. "Before going to Thorne Manor, could you take me to the apartment in Greenwich Village first?" I got into the car, the warm heat instantly enveloping me. I need to retrieve my mother's belongings. Those were the paintings my mother left me. Mother was an obscure painter in her lifetime. After being abandoned by Father Chow, she died of a broken heart, and those paintings were the only mementos she left me. To avoid Preston's disdain, I hid them in the small apartment I rented in Greenwich Village. However, when the car stopped downstairs at the apartment, I saw the apartment door wide open, and several workers wearing moving company uniforms were going in and out. My heart sank abruptly. I pushed open the car door and rushed inside. The living room was a mess. Claire, wearing the season's latest Chanel haute couture suit and stepping in those iconic red-bottomed high heels, was directing workers to throw my paintings into the fireplace. That was Mother's favorite piece, sunflowers. The canvas was already curling and turning black in the flames. "Stop!" I screamed as I rushed over, ignoring the searing heat of the flames, reaching out to snatch that painting. Claire was startled by my sudden appearance, but immediately, that vicious and fake smile I knew all too well appeared on her face. Oh my, isn't this the sister who just got kicked to the curb? What, is $5 million not enough for you to buy new trash, that you have to come snatch these dead people's things? My hand was blistered by the tongues of fire. Although I managed to snatch the frame out, a large hole had already been burned through the center of the picture. That sunflower, like a blinded eye, stared hollowly at me. This is Mom's painting. I stared dead at Claire, trembling all over. That's your mom, not mine. My mom is the legitimate Mrs. Vance. Claire covered her nose with a handkerchief in disgust. Preston said this apartment is his asset too, and now he's given it to me to use as a live streaming studio. Keeping these jinx things here will affect my feng shui and my traffic. As she spoke, she signaled to the two bodyguards beside her. What are you standing around for? Escort this Miss Illegitimate daughter out. Don't let her dirty my carpet. Two burly men immediately stepped forward and pinned my arms, one on the left and one on the right. Claire, you will pay for this. I didn't struggle, just looked at her coldly, my eyes like I was looking at a dead person. The price? You? Claire shook with laughter. She walked up to me and reached out to pat my face. Wake up, Aubrey. Without Preston, you're worse than a stray dog in New York. How do you plan to take revenge on me, with that bastard in your belly? Just as her hand was about to touch my cheek, a powerful hand appeared out of nowhere and caught her wrist in mid-air. Ah! Claire let out a scream. That was the sound of bones dislocating. The Thorne family's bodyguards flooded into the cramped apartment like a black tide, instantly subduing Claire's men. Butler Alfred stood at the door, his expression grim. Miss Vance, sorry we arrived a step too late. Alfred bowed slightly, then turned towards that tall figure. Sir, do we need to call the police? I turned my head and saw that man standing in the shadows. He was sitting in a high. Nolan Thorne. He's awake. Calling the police is letting her off too easy. Derek's voice was low and hoarse, like he hadn't spoken in a long time, yet it carried a spine-tingling magnetism. He maneuvered his wheelchair in front of me, his gaze landing on my burned hand, a trace of heartache flashing in his eyes. This is intentional destruction of valuable property involving a massive sum. Alfred, notify the legal department. I want Miss Vance to rot in prison for this painting. Claire was breaking out in a cold sweat from the pain, yet she was still shouting, Who are you? Do you know who I am? I'm Preston Sterling's fiancé. How much is this painting even worth? Just a piece of junk worth a few $100. A piece of junk? Derek chuckled lightly, though the smile didn't reach his eyes. This painting is the posthumous work of the late painter Elena Vance. I already purchased ownership of this painting at auction an hour ago for $30 million in the name of the Thorne Foundation and gifted it to Miss Aubrey. So, Miss Vance, what you just burned is an artwork worth $30 million. The entire room fell dead silent. I looked at Derek in shock. How did he know my mother's name? How could he have bought the ownership an hour ago? Seeming to see through my confusion, Derek raised his hand and gently held my injured fingers. His fingertips were icy cold, yet gave me a long-lost sense of security. Let's go to the hospital first, Aubrey. He called my name, so naturally as if it had lingered on the tip of his tongue 1,000 times. We'll settle the rest of the score slowly. After all, what the Vance family owes you is not just a painting. Claire was still screaming, yelling that Preston would come to save her, but I didn't care anymore. I looked at Derek, and for the first time in this cold Vanity Fair, I found a true ally. Okay. I gripped his hand back. Let's go. I knew that from this moment on, the Aubrey who suffered in silence had died in that fire. The me of now would tread upon the flames of revenge and take back everything that belonged to me. The farce in Greenwich Village came to a temporary halt, with Claire being taken away by the police. Although I knew that with the Sterling family's power, Preston would soon be able to bail her out, this was just the beginning. A $30 million claim was enough to make the current Vance family shed a layer of skin. Not to mention, this was a challenge issued personally by Nolan Thorne. Sitting in the car heading to the Thorne Private Hospital, the interior was so quiet that only the sound of the wipers could be heard. Derek and I sat facing each other, a subtle tension permeating the air. The doctor was performing emergency treatment on my hand burns. The stinging pain made me frown slightly, but I didn't make a sound the whole time. "You've changed, but you also haven't changed a bit." Derek suddenly spoke, his gaze locked tight on my face. That look wasn't like he was looking at a stranger he just met who was carrying his child, but rather like he was looking at a long-lost old friend. "Mr. Thorne, I don't remember us meeting before." I looked him straight in the eye, trying to find some fragments of memory in that chiseled face, but aside from the cold face on the covers of finance magazines, I came up with nothing. Derek waved away the doctor who had finished up. The car partition rose, turning this into an absolutely private confessional. He took a heavily worn old music box from a hidden compartment on the side of the wheelchair and handed it to me. 16 years ago, the summer in Hampton, there was a little girl hiding in the bushes crying who gave a piece of lemon cake to the little boy next door that everyone treated like a freak because of his autism. Derek's slender fingers gently stroked the lid of the music box. That little boy swore that when he grew up, he would build her a castle so she would never have to hide in the bushes and cry again. The floodgates of memory burst open. 16 years ago, I was 10. I had just been brought back to the Vance family and was being relentlessly bullied by Claire. That summer, at the vacation home in the Hamptons, I met the pale boy next door who always sat alone in the garden without saying a word. I didn't know who he was, only that he was even lonelier than me. "You are Jules?" I covered my mouth in disbelief. That scrawny boy who seemed like he would shatter at any moment had actually grown into this figure that now makes Wall Street tremble? "It's me." A hint of a genuine smile finally appeared at the corner of Derek's mouth. "Aubrey, I've been looking for you for many years, but I woke up too late." His voice carried deep regret. The car accident half a year ago had kept him in a coma until now. If it weren't for that mix-up call from the fertility center stimulating his brain nerves, perhaps he would still be asleep. The doctor said it was the will to survive and a sense of responsibility that woke me up. Derek looked at my belly, his gaze becoming incredibly gentle. "I know our child is waiting for you. I know you are waiting for me." My nose stung. All the cold treatment and grievances I had suffered from Preston over the past 5 years seemed to find release in this moment. It turned out that in this world, there really was someone who had come specifically for me. But Preston... I hesitated a little. After all, the whole of New York knew that Derek and Preston were sworn enemies. Preston Sterling is a blind man, even if he has regained his sight. Derek commented coldly. Then he handed me a document. "This is an agreement drafted by my legal team. It's not a prenup, it's a gift agreement." I flipped open the file and the terms inside left me dumbfounded. Derek was actually going to unconditionally transfer 5% of Thorne Tech's shares to me as a meeting gift for me and the baby. This sum was enough to buy 10 Vance families. "I don't want your money." I closed the file and pushed it back. "Derek, I have hands and feet and I have a talent for design. I served as a nanny for Preston for 5 years, but I earned my degree from Parsons School of Design. I want to build my own fashion empire, and I want to trample the Vance family under my feet with my own 2 hands." Derek looked at me, the appreciation in his eyes growing even stronger. He didn't insist, he just took back the file, but then he took my hand. "Fine. I won't give you money, but I'll give you power. From today on, all of the Thorne family's resources are open to you. Do whatever you want to do. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up for you." The car stopped at the hospital entrance. Just then, my phone started vibrating like crazy. It was Preston. I pressed the answer button and put it on speaker. Preston's furious voice instantly filled the entire car. "Aubrey Vance, are you crazy? You actually dared to let the police take Claire away? If you don't drop the charges immediately and get your ass back here to kneel and apologize to Claire, I'll have your vegetable mother's grave bulldozed." That same old trick again. Threats, intimidation, exploiting my weaknesses. Before, I would have been scared because I had nothing. But now... Before I could speak, Derek took the phone and said into the receiver in a lazy yet penetrating voice, "Mr. Sterling, if you dare touch a single blade of grass on Aubrey's mother's grave, I'll make Sterling Group stock hit the limit down at tomorrow's opening. Also, I am Nolan Thorne, the father of the child in Aubrey's belly. Just so you know, get ready to receive my lawyer's letter. Regarding the emotional abuse and financial control you've subjected Aubrey to over the past 5 years, we will settle the score one by one." The other end of the line fell into a deathly silence, followed by the busy tone. Preston was probably scared silly. Derek tossed the phone back to me, his eyes gleaming with the light of a hunter spotting prey. "The game has begun, Aubrey. Ready to watch how they fall from the clouds into the mud?" I looked out the window at the dazzling Manhattan night view and clenched my fists. I can't wait. 1 month later, the eve of New York Fashion Week. This past month, a moderate earthquake hit New York's upper-class social circle. First, Claire, the eldest miss of the Vance family, was sued for allegedly damaging a high-value artwork. Although Preston paid a fortune to bail her out, that $30 million lawsuit still hangs over the Vance family's head like the sword of Damocles. Secondly, that obscure cast-off wife, Aubrey, actually opened a haute couture studio named Phoenix in Soho, and the ribbon-cutting guest on opening day was none other than Nolan Thorne, who just made his comeback after recovering. Rumors were flying everywhere. Some said I got ahead by using my pregnancy, while others said Derek was only using me to get revenge on Preston. I didn't care. At this moment, I was standing in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling mirror in the studio, adjusting the dark green velvet evening gown on the mannequin. This was the battle robe I had prepared for tonight's Fashion Week gala, and also the debut piece for the Phoenix brand. Tighten the waistline another centimeter. I mumbled to the assistant with pearl pins held between my teeth. What we want to show is the strength to grow upwards, even when in the abyss, not just to display fabric. "But Aubrey," the assistant hesitated, "this gown was originally ordered by Mrs. Vance, and now it's not for sale." I sneered. To let Claire outshine me at tonight's gala, my stepmother actually tried to use a fake name to order clothes from my studio. She didn't know that I was no longer that pushover she could manipulate at will. The door was pushed open, and Derek walked in. After a month of rehab, he could already ditch the wheelchair. Although he still had to use a cane, his posture was as upright as ever. He was wearing a black Tom Ford suit with a dark green tie I had picked out myself, which perfectly matched the evening gown. "Are you ready, my queen?" He walked up behind me and looked at me through the mirror, his eyes filled with awe. "Tonight, you will be the brightest star in all of Manhattan." I turned around and adjusted the knot of his tie. "Jules, are you sure you want to go with me? Preston will definitely be there tonight, and rumor has it he's going to announce his wedding date with Claire." "Then I have to go even more." Derek lowered his head and planted a kiss on my forehead. I want him to know what kind of treasure he missed out on, and what kind of trash he picked up. The banquet was held at the Met. Flashbulbs on both sides of the red carpet made it as bright as day. And when I stepped out of the limo, holding Derek's arm, even the reporters who were used to big scenes fell silent for a moment. 4 months pregnant, my lower abdomen was only slightly rounded. Set off by that custom-made dark green gown, not only did it not look bloated, but it actually added a sense of maternal softness and mystery. Derek kept carefully guarding my waist. That kind of meticulous care is something that can't be faked. We just walked into the banquet hall when we bumped into Preston and Claire. Talk about enemies crossing paths on a narrow road. Claire was wearing an exaggerated pink sequin tulle dress. Although her makeup was exquisite, it couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes and her anxiety. That lawsuit obviously took a heavy toll on her. And Preston, he looked even gaunter than before, his eyes gloomy, his hand tightly gripping a champagne glass. Seeing me and Derek, Preston's pupils constricted sharply. "Aubrey!" He strode over, even ignoring the fiancé beside him. You actually got with him?" His gaze lingered on me. It was a look he'd never had before, full of scrutiny and even a hint of amazement. Before, in his eyes, I was a nanny, heir, an accessory, anything but a charming woman. "Mr. Sterling, please watch your words." Derek stepped forward, blocking Preston's gaze that made me uncomfortable. "Aubrey is now my fiancé, and also the founder of Phoenix. If you want to talk business, please make an appointment with my secretary. If you want to catch up, sorry, we aren't close." "Fiancé," Claire screamed, her voice so shrill it was a bit piercing. How is that possible? Preston, look at her carrying someone else's bastard and daring to show off like this. How is a lowly woman like that fit to enter the Thorne family's door? The surrounding guests cast sidelong glances and whispered among themselves. I gently patted Derek's arm, signaling him not to get angry. I walked out from behind him, facing Claire's twisted face directly. "Sister, since you insist on saying such things in a setting like this, then let's lay it all out." I took a neatly folded document from my clutch. It was an investigation report on Claire's private life in Paris over the past 5 years, as well as a copy of a medical diagnosis regarding her infertility resulting from a miscarriage. "Preston always thought you were in Paris striving for your dreams, but actually, you were paying off gambling debts for that bankrupt French second-generation rich guy, and even had 3 abortions for him, resulting in permanent infertility." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for the surrounding circle of people to hear clearly. "You called the child in my belly a bastard? Then tell me, what are you, trying to trick the Sterling family heir into marriage with a fake pregnancy?" The crowd went into an uproar. Claire's face turned deathly pale, and she reached out to snatch the document. "You're lying, you bitch! I'll tear your mouth apart!" But before she could touch me, Preston grabbed her wrist. "Is what she said true?" Preston's voice was cold as ice shards. He stared dead at Claire, the anger in his eyes almost swallowing her whole. No, Preston, she forged that. She's jealous of me," Claire argued frantically, tears coming on command. "Whether it's forged or not, a trip to the hospital for a checkup will make it clear," I added calmly, twisting the knife. "Also, I have the debt collection emails sent by that French second-generation rich guy. Do you need me to forward them to your fiancé?" Preston shook off Claire's hand, wearing a look of disgust like he was shaking off something dirty stuck to his hand. He turned to look at me, the emotions in his eyes so complex I couldn't read them. There was shock, anger, and even a kind of belated regret. "Aubrey, you knew all along?" he asked me. "Yeah," I admitted frankly, "but why should I tell you? Just like you said, we're just a contract couple. I just want to get my alimony. As for the color of the hat on your head, that's your own choice." Preston's body swayed, as if he'd been punched hard. Just then, the lights in the banquet hall dimmed, and a spotlight hit the center of the stage. The host announced the start of tonight's charity auction. Derek held my hand and walked towards the VIP seats. As we passed by Preston, he stopped and said in a voice that only the 3 of us could hear, "Sterling, remember this feeling. This is just the beginning." The dinner at the Met didn't stop because of this farce. On the contrary, the exposure of this high society scandal made the undercurrent swirl even more violently. Preston didn't leave. He was not only an arrogant man, but also a businessman who cared immensely about saving face. Storming out in a rage right now would be confirming the fact that he'd been played for a fool. He even forced Claire to stay, even though that woman was currently cowering in the corner, shivering like a plucked peacock. The climax of the banquet was a traditional blind wine tasting session. It was the favorite game of New York's high society. Guests would put on blindfolds and evaluate red wines, relying solely on their sense of smell and taste, using this to show off their sophistication and sensory acuity. Derek couldn't drink due to health reasons, but he encouraged me to attend. Go on, let them see that you don't just understand design, you also understand life, he whispered in my ear. I put on the black silk blindfold, and the world plunged into darkness. This feeling instantly took me back to 5 years ago, when Preston had just gone blind, and I often accompanied him like this in the dark to practice identifying positions by sound, practicing using touch to perceive the world. Back then, I would hold his hand and tell him there were steps ahead and a rose bush on the left. The waiter brought a tray, and I picked up a glass of red wine, swirling it gently as the rich aroma of black currant and cedar hit my nose. It's a 2010 Chateau Margaux, I whispered instinctively. The tannins are smooth, but it hasn't breathed enough, so there's still a bit of rawness. This wasn't just a tasting, it was a habit. Before, when Preston couldn't sleep, I often used to read to him like this, or describe the taste of red wine, my voice soft and soothing. Just then, I felt someone approaching me, carrying a familiar scent mixed with tobacco and cold cologne. Your voice. That person's voice was trembling. Why does your voice sound exactly the same as back then? I was startled and wanted to take off the blindfold, but a pair of large hands pressed down on my shoulders. It was Preston. Don't move. His voice was terribly hoarse. 5 years ago, during those first few months when I went blind, the person who read to me every night, that was you, wasn't it? When I lost my temper and threw things, the person who silently cleaned up and hugged me while crying, that was also you, wasn't it? I fell silent for a moment, then gently pushed his hand away and took off the eye mask. The light was blinding. Preston's eyes were bloodshot, staring dead at me, as if trying to look through my skin into the depths of my soul. Was it you, imitating Claire's voice all along? He seemed to have finally figured out the connection. Why? Why did you lie to me? Because that was your mother's request and also the Vance family's condition. I looked at him, my heart feeling completely unmoved. You said you only loved Claire. If you knew it was me taking care of you, you would have starved yourself. You would have self-harmed to let you live, and for that capital injection that could save the Vance family, I had no choice but to become Claire. So, that warmth, that companionship, it was actually all from you? Preston stepped back as if unable to accept this reality. And I always thought it was Claire. I gave all my love and compensation to her, and even wanted to drive you away for her. How ironic. His so-called deep love turned out to be nothing but a castle in the air built on illusions. Preston, does it matter? I coldly interrupted his self-indulgent sentiment. For those 5 years, you certainly relied on that voice, but when you regained your sight, you chose the glamorous Claire, not me, who had worn myself out into a hag for you. Your love is, essentially, just vanity and status worship. You never loved a specific person, but rather that phantom which fit your imagination of a perfect wife. No, it's not like that. Preston agitatedly tried to grab my hand. If it were you who had been with me all along, then the person I love is you. Aubrey, let's remarry. This time I'll give you a grand wedding and I'll make up for everything I owe you. It's too late. Derek had walked over with his cane at some point. He elegantly pulled me into his arms and looked down at Preston. Preston, there are no reloads in the adult world. While you were looking for gold in a trash heap, I was already holding the treasure in the palm of my hand. Derek turned his head and nodded to the media reporters not far away, who had long since set up their battery of cameras. The next second, the image on the big screen suddenly switched. It was no longer the charity promotional video, but a shaky, yet clear video clip. In the video, Claire, with her clothes disheveled, was passionately kissing a man covered in tattoos inside a sports car, with the Eiffel Tower in Paris in the background. Following that came a series of money transfer slips, showing that the startup funds Preston gave her had all flowed into that man's gambling account. Oh my God, is this Miss Vance's advanced studies abroad? Mr. Sterling sure has those cuckold horns planted firmly on his head. The uproar of discussion erupted like a tsunami. Preston's face went from pale to livid. He whipped his head around to look at Claire in the corner, his eyes looking like he wanted to kill her. What is going on? Claire screamed as she rushed over. Turn it off, quick, turn it off. It's synthesized. Preston, let me explain. Explain, Preston finally exploded. He slapped Claire ruthlessly across the face, with such force that it knocked her directly to the ground. Take your explanation to hell. The Vance family is finished and... He turned to me, his eyes holding a last shred of hope. Aubrey, look, I've already punished her. I know I was wrong. Will you come back? I can even accept that child. Preston Sterling. I cut him off, raising the red wine glass in my hand and slowly tilting it, pouring the dark red liquid onto his expensive handmade leather shoes. You make me sick. Derek is not only the father of the child, but also my lover, my partner, my soulmate. And you're just a pitiful wretch who can't even see his own heart clearly. With that, I took Derek's arm and turned to leave under the gaze of the entire crowd. Behind me were Preston's desperate roar and Claire's wailing, as well as the prelude to the Vance family's complete collapse. Walking out of the museum, the night breeze was slightly cool. Feel satisfied? Derek asked me. Satisfied. I took a deep breath. But it's not over yet. The Vance family's company is still on its last legs. I'm going to personally acquire it and turn it into a processing plant for Phoenix. As you wish. Derek opened the car door, shielding the top of my head like a gentleman. When the stock market opens tomorrow, you'll see a good show. Early the next morning, before Wall Street had fully woken up, the stock prices of Sterling Group and Vance Industries had already plummeted in pre-market trading. That was the morning gift Derek sent me. Thorn Capital had teamed up with several short-selling firms to release a 50-page short report detailing Vance Industries' financial fraud and money laundering via shell companies, as well as Sterling Group's chaotic internal management, the heirs' private misconduct, and a whole series of other dirt. I was in the office at Phoenix Studio, drinking the bird's nest porridge Derek stewed himself, while watching those two shocking green limit-down lines on the big screen. Vance Industries' capital chain has broken, my financial advisor said, pointing at the report. The banks are calling in loans, and suppliers are causing trouble. Father Chow is as anxious as an ant on a hot pan right now, begging for help everywhere. Asking for help? I put down my spoon. Who else can he turn to? Preston has his hands full right now. The Sterling family board is impeaching him, demanding he take responsibility for this scandal and resign. Just as we were speaking, the receptionist called. President Aubrey, Mr. Chow is downstairs saying that if you don't see him, he'll jump off the building. I laughed. Jump off the building? That man who cherishes his life like gold and is selfish to the core would never bear to die. Let him come up. 5 minutes later, Father Chow pushed the door open and entered. In just one night, he seemed to have aged 10 years. His hair, originally combed not a strand out of place, was now in complete disarray, and the bags under his eyes almost drooped to his cheekbones. Ning ning, ning ning, you have to save Dad. As soon as he entered, he knelt before me with a thump, weeping. Only you can save the Vance family. Tell Derek to stop. As long as he's willing to inject capital, the company can be saved. The company will be yours in the future, all yours. I've already kicked out that unfilial daughter, Claire. Looking at the man kneeling on the ground, I felt not a shred of pity in my heart, only endless desolation. This is my father, who for profit could abandon his wife and daughter, and could also grovel without dignity when down and out. Give the company to me? I stood up and walked in front of him. Chow Jong, have you forgotten that Vance Industries was originally started with my mother's dowry? It was you who used despicable means to swindle mother's shares into your hands and then angered her to death. This company originally bore the surname Vance, not Chow. Yes, it's all my fault, Father Chow said while slapping himself in the face. As long as you're willing to save the company, I'll agree to anything. You don't want to see your mother's life's work destroyed in an instant, do you? Of course I don't. I took a pre-drafted equity transfer agreement out of the drawer and threw it in front of him. Sign it. Transfer all the shares under your name to me for free, resign as chairman, and get the hell out of the board of directors. In exchange, I'll take on the company's debts and prevent it from going into bankruptcy liquidation. Father Chow picked up the agreement with trembling hands, his expression changing drastically after seeing the terms clearly. Transfer for free? Then you might as well kill me. I still have a pension. You also have a buttload of gambling debts and evidence of embezzling funds. I interrupted him coldly. If you don't sign, this evidence will appear on the prosecutor's desk tomorrow. When that happens, not only will you get nothing, but you'll also spend your old age in prison. Father Chow slumped to the ground. He knew I meant what I said. Between prison and having nothing, he finally signed that name with a trembling hand. Get lost, I put away the agreement. From today on, don't let me see you again. And don't expect me to support you in your old age because you don't deserve to be a father at all. Father Chow left looking like he had lost his soul. I walked to the window and looked at the bustling street below. The sunshine was nice, but I knew this was just the calm before the storm. Preston hadn't completely fallen yet, and that crazy woman, Claire, wouldn't let things rest. Just then, the office door was pushed open again. The person who came in this time was someone I hadn't expected. The chairman of the Sterling Group, Preston's father, old Mr. Sterling. That legendary old fox, ruthless and mercenary. Miss Vance! Or perhaps I should call you Mrs. Thorne. Old Sterling leaned on his cane, his gaze sharp. I want to discuss a deal with you. Mr. Sterling, please sit. I signaled the secretary to pour tea, not showing any timidity due to his status. During my time beside Derek, the most important lesson I learned was, at the negotiation table of capital, presence is often more important than leverage. Old Sterling didn't sit. He looked around my studio, which was full of modern design, with a trace of imperceptible appreciation in his eyes. Young and promising. It seems Preston really was blind, not just physically, but psychologically as well. If you're here to plead for your son, then save your breath. I got straight to the point. Thorne Capital shorting the Sterling Group is a market action. Although I am Derek's fiancée, I won't interfere with his business decisions. Plead for him? Old Sterling sneered. That idiot made a mess of the family reputation and even tried to use company funds to fill that bottomless pit, Claire. The board has already voted unanimously to remove him from his CEO position. I'm here to discuss cooperation with you. Cooperate? I was a bit surprised. I know you're acquiring Vance Industries, and I also know you want to break into the European market. Old Sterling pulled a document from inside his jacket. The Sterling Group has the most mature sales channels and supply chains in Milan and Paris. If you're willing to let the Phoenix brand enter our high-end malls and withdraw the malicious lawsuits against some of the Sterling Group's core businesses, I can open these channels to you and transfer the remaining Sterling shares in Preston's hands to you at a low price. This is an irresistible temptation. Although Phoenix has gained a foothold in New York, the market in Europe is a must-win battleground if we want to become a top-tier international brand. and acquiring Sterling shares at a low price means I will be directly meddling in the core interests of my ex-husband's family. The thrill of this revenge is simply beyond words. But he is your son, after all. I scrutinized the old man. In the Sterling family, interests come before blood. Old Sterling was expressionless. Besides, he is still young. Letting him go out into society with nothing to his name to grind for a few years might actually make something of him. It's better than being wrapped around a woman's finger like he is now. What cold family logic. No wonder Preston grew up to be such an extremely selfish and insecure person. Deal. I held out my hand. But I have an additional condition. I want Preston to come personally to sign this equity transfer agreement and publicly apologize to me and my mother. No problem. Old Sterling gripped my hand, his palm dry and firm. That's what he owes you. After seeing old Sterling off, I gave Derek a call. Heard you took care of that old fox? Derek's cheerful laughter came from the other end of the phone. Looks like my Aubrey is already a qualified capitalist. That's a great teacher producing a great student, I replied with a smile. But I want to see Preston. There are some things I want to make clear to him in person. Do you need me to go with you? No need. As he is now, he poses no threat to me. 3 days later, in the top-floor conference room of the Sterling Group, Preston sat dejectedly in that executive chair that once symbolized supreme power, with dark stubble and sunken eyes. Seeing me enter, his eyes lit up for a moment, but then immediately dimmed again. Are you here to laugh at me? His voice was hoarse. I'm here to sign. I pushed the agreement in front of him. Sign it and you can get a severance payment, enough for you to drag out your miserable existence in any corner of this world. If you don't sign, then go to prison saddled with a massive debt. Preston looked at that transfer agreement, suddenly smiled, a smile uglier than crying. I used to think you couldn't live without me, couldn't live without the Sterling family's money. Now it seems it was me who couldn't live without the illusory warmth you gave me. Aubrey, if I hadn't gone blind back then, or if I had recognized it was you as soon as I regained my sight, would the ending be different? No. I coldly shattered his fantasy, because the arrogance and prejudice in your bones destined you to look down on an illegitimate daughter. You love forever only yourself and that so-called perfect persona of yours. Even without Claire, there would be another well-matched young lady. We were never on the same path. Preston's hand trembled, and he finally signed his name on the agreement. I'm sorry. He lowered his head, his voice light as a mosquito's. I'm sorry, and thank you for those 5 years of care. This was the first and also the last time I heard his sincere words, but this belated apology, compared to the hurt I had suffered, was truly too light, too light. I don't accept your apology, but I'll take it. I put away the documents, turned, and left. Goodbye, Preston. I hope we never meet again. Walking out of the building, the sunlight was blinding. Derek's car was still parked by the roadside waiting for me. Is it over? He asked him. It's over. I sat into the car, feeling an unprecedented lightness. The current Vance family and Sterling family, that's all turned the page now. Next, we are going to welcome a new life. I stroked my already clearly bulging belly, where a burst of strong movement was coming from. The Vance family went bankrupt, Sterling changed hands, and this reshuffling of the elite kicked up a massive storm in New York. As the biggest winner, I became the focus of countless media chases. But compared to this hollow fame, I care more about my upcoming due date. When I was 8 months pregnant, Derek took me to his seaside villa in the Hamptons so I could have a peaceful pregnancy. It was far away from the city's hustle and bustle, with only the sound of waves and the cries of seagulls. However, even here, it couldn't stop a madman from infiltrating. That afternoon, I was sunbathing in the garden while Derek went downtown for an emergency meeting. The nanny went to the kitchen to prepare afternoon tea for me, and I was lying alone on the lounge chair, feeling drowsy. Suddenly, a piercing screech of brakes shattered the silence. A battered pickup truck smashed through the villa's iron gates and came crashing straight towards me. Terrified, I tried to get up, but my heavy body made me move slowly. Just in the nick of time, a figure dashed out from the nearby bushes and tackled me hard onto the grass. The pickup truck crashed into the garden fountain, its front end severely crumpled. Still in shock, I looked up and saw that the person who tackled me was actually Preston. He was wearing a cheap set of work clothes, his face covered in grime, looking nothing like a wealthy young master anymore. His arm was scraped by the ground, blood streaming down, but he didn't care about himself, looking at me nervously. "Aubrey, are you okay? Is the baby okay?" I was stunned. Why was he here? Before I could speak, the door of that pickup truck was kicked open, and a disheveled woman stumbled out. It was Claire. She held a gleaming fruit knife in her hand, her eyes unfocused and crazed, still muttering neurotically, "Kill you. If I kill you, I can marry Preston. Kill that bastard." "Claire, are you crazy?" Preston stepped in front of me, roaring. "You're already wanted, and you still dare to come here and commit murder." "Wanted? Ha 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 ha!" Claire laughed maniacally. "It's all because of this bitch. If she hadn't stolen my luck and my man, I'd still be the young lady of the Vance family. Preston, get out of my way. I'm going to kill her, and then we can start over." "It's impossible." Preston closed his eyes in pain. "Claire, wake up. We were wrong. We're the ones who wronged her." "You betrayed me too? You fell in love with that bitch too?" Claire screamed, raising her knife and charging forward. Preston didn't dodge. He shielded me behind him with all his might. With a squelch came the sound of the blade plunging into flesh. Blood splattered onto my face, warm and sickly sweet. Preston let out a muffled groan and slowly fell. That knife stuck in his abdomen. "Preston!" I shouted in terror. At the same time, sirens approached from the distance. The Thorne family's security team arrived as well, and several bodyguards quickly subdued the crazed Claire. "Aubrey!" Preston lay in a pool of blood, his face deathly pale, yet he struggled to squeeze out a smile. "This time, I finally protected you for once. I don't owe you anymore." A sudden sharp pain shot through my belly, and amniotic fluid flowed down between my legs. "It hurts. Derek." My vision went black, and I passed out. When I woke up again, I was lying in a hospital delivery room. Surrounding me were the busy figures of doctors and the beeping of instruments. "Mrs. Thorne, hang in there. The baby's head is visible." Agonizing pain tore through my body, and I felt as if I had just walked through the gates of hell. Derek was wearing sterile scrubs, gripping my hand tightly. His palms were covered in cold sweat, and his eyes were red. "I'm here, Aubrey, I'm here." He kept whispering in my ear, "Don't be afraid, we're all here." Finally, a loud cry pierced the heavy atmosphere of the delivery room. "It's a boy! Mother and child are safe!" I collapsed onto the pillow in exhaustion, looking at that wrinkled little guy in the nurse's arms, tears bursting from my eyes. Derek leaned down to kiss my forehead, tears and sweat mingling together. "Thank you, wife. Thank you for giving me a home." It was only later that I learned Preston hadn't died, but that stab wound injured his internal organs. Although he was saved, his health was far worse than before. After waking up in the hospital and finding out I had safely given birth, he left just a letter and disappeared. There was only one sentence in the letter. "May the rest of your life be a smooth road. Do not miss me." As for Claire, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for attempted murder and multiple financial crimes. I heard she went completely mad in prison, putting on makeup facing the wall every day, fantasizing that she was still that socialite in the limelight. The wicked finally get their just desserts, and my happiness has only just begun. Derek made the baby's 1-month celebration extremely lavish. The top hotel in the Hamptons was booked out, and half of the American high society attended. This was not only to celebrate the birth of the Thorne family's eldest grandson, but also for Derek to declare my importance to him, to the whole world. I was wearing the latest haute couture gown from Phoenix, standing beside Derek with the baby in my arms. Although my postpartum figure hadn't fully recovered, nourished by love, I looked more radiant than ever. This child looks just like Derek, especially the eyes and brows. The guests who came to offer congratulations praised one after another. The little guy really knows how to pick his features, inheriting Derek's deep eyes and my nose. When he's not crying or fussing, he's practically an angel. Derek named him Leo, symbolizing that he's as brave and strong as a lion. Just as the banquet reached its climax, an unexpected person appeared. It was a middle-aged woman dressed plainly, even a bit shabbily. She was holding a worn-out cloth bundle in her hand, shouting that she wanted to see me while security tried to stop her. "Let her through." I signaled security to let her pass. The woman walked up to me and knelt down with a thud, trembling as she opened the bundle. Inside was a pile of loose cash and a few pieces of gold jewelry that looked like they had some years on them. I was a bit puzzled. "I used to be Preston's nanny," the woman said, wiping her tears. "Young master. No, Mr. Preston gave these things to me before he left and told me I must pass them on to you. He said this came from selling the last of his personal belongings. It's not much, but it's a small token for the little young master. He also said he doesn't deserve to appear here and only hopes the little young master can grow up healthy and not be like him, blind in both eyes and heart." Looking at that pile of crumpled bills and tarnished gold jewelry, I had mixed feelings. That once arrogant young Master Sterling who spent money like water had actually fallen to this state, yet he was still trying to make amends in this clumsy way. Accept it. Derek gently put his arm around my shoulder. This is the only redemption he can offer. I nodded, had the assistant take the things, and gave the nanny a sum of money so she could live a good life. "Where did he go?" I asked casually. "He went to Africa." The nanny sighed, said he joined a logistics team for Doctors Without Borders, wanted to go to the poorest places to do something, to atone for his sins. Africa. A place like that, far away from the Vanity Fair, perhaps really suits him as he is now. Shortly after the full moon banquet ended, Derek began preparing for our wedding. He said he owed me a grand ceremony to let the whole world know that I am his lawfully wedded wife. The wedding was set on the shores of Lake Como, Italy. That day, the sunlight was perfect, and the breeze was gentle. Wearing the wedding dress I designed myself and spent half a year hand-sewing, I walked towards the man whose eyes held only me amidst a shower of falling petals. This time, there were no stand-ins, no schemes, and no reluctance. Only two hearts holding each other tight after enduring so many hardships. "Aubrey Vance, will you marry Nolan Thorne, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love him and protect him until the end of your life?" I looked into Derek's deep, affectionate eyes, where my happy reflection was mirrored. "I do." The moment the ring slid onto my ring finger, it was as if I heard the gears of fate meshing together once again. The gray past was finally left completely behind, and ahead lay boundless radiance. 5 years later, the Phoenix brand has become a regular at New York Fashion Week, with branches even opening in Paris and Milan. I am no longer that canary dependent on a wealthy family, but a business queen capable of standing side by side with Derek. On this day, I was in my office looking over the season's reports when 5-year-old Leo came running in on his short little legs, followed by a doting Derek. "Mommy! Daddy said he's taking us on a yacht today!" Leo threw himself into my arms, speaking in a cute, milky voice. "Okay, whatever Leo wants." I smiled and picked him up, planting a kiss on his chubby face. Derek walked over, naturally taking the child from me and holding my hand with his other. "Done with work, Mrs. Thorne?" "All done, Mr. Thorne." I winked playfully. Our family of 3 walked out of the building, the setting sun stretching our shadows out long. Passing by a newsstand, I happened to glance at the cover of a financial magazine. It featured a tanned man with a bright smile, posing with children in front of a school in Africa. The headline read, "From Wolf of Wall Street to Guardian of Africa, Preston Sterling's Road to Redemption." Preston in the photo, although no longer wearing expensive suits, had eyes that were clearer and more determined than ever before. I stopped in my tracks, looked for a few seconds, and then smiled with relief. "What are you looking at?" Derek followed my gaze, raising a brow. "Regret it?" "Of course not." I tightened my grip on his arm. "I just feel like it's really nice that everyone has found where they belong." "Yeah." Derek lowered his head and kissed the top of my hair. "But where I belong is forever only with you." We smiled at each other and walked towards home, facing the setting sun. Along this journey, there were storms and mud. But as long as it's you, in the end, it doesn't matter if it's a little late.